From Russian officials and on television here, you often hear the phrase, Russia is a country of victors. And in some Russian newspapers, the idea of victory is ever present. For example, this week's edition of Arguments and Facts. On the front cover, Russia has already won. That's about Russia hosting the Intervision Song Contest. Then on page 2, the priorities of the Russian state are named as victory in the special military operation, Russia's war in Ukraine, and demographics. A few pages later, victory is close. Exhibition opens about soldiers of the special military operation. In the weekly Komsomolskaya Pravda supplement, there's a competition to choose the best farmers of Russia. And Maxim Lebedev has already won the All-Russian Melon and Vegetable Growers Contest 2025. His 133 kilogram, 450 grams watermelon is the biggest in the country. Talking of the biggest, here's a Russian mushroom, a Russian pumpkin, and giant onions. But it would be wrong to think that all Russian newspapers present Russia as the biggest, the greatest, as Russia always on top. Some, for example, regularly report on the country's economic problems. Like today's Nezavissimaya Gazeta, the latest government forecasts officially recognise that current indicators will deteriorate by the end of the year. The consequences of the cooling of the economy turned out to be much worse than our officials expected back in April. And independent economists have calculated that the current conditions for lending for Russian enterprises are the worst in decades. It is no coincidence that the Russian government expects a drop in investment next year as well. Kommersant today reports that the export of petrol and diesel will be restricted until the end of the year. The government was predictably prompted to take this decision by the rise in market prices and the shortage of fuel in several Russian regions. And Moskovsky Komsomolets has this story, predictions of an imminent fall in the value of the ruble. I want to return now to the war in Ukraine and the tensions between Russia and Europe. One word you see, you read, and you hear more and more in Russia is the word war. 3 years ago, Russian officials would pretty much only use the phrase special military operation. Here, Komsomolskaya Pravda quotes Vladimir Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov as saying that what's happening around us, this is war, and we need to win it for the sake of our children. Key point, though, when Russian officials speak of war, they mean that Europe, NATO, Britain are using Ukraine to wage war on Russia, even though in February 2022 it was Russia that launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and Russia continues to attack Ukrainian towns and cities. Moskovsky Komsomolets today accuses the West of getting ready to start a full-scale war with Russia. Our enemies are actively preparing. The question is when.